The workshop of the Grimes County Commissioner Court. The date is May the 20th. We are at 114 West Buffington. And the first order of business is to open the meeting. The second order of business is to discuss business with the volunteer fire departments. Is the, I
There's
guess.
some outside, I think, Judge.
Okay,
Did you push the button?
I did.
Okay,
And it's red,
awesome.
which means everything you say can and will be used against you or for you.
Back here where I can't get shot.
I know the grass, you're behind me, so.
Ms. Tier, you're still president of the association?
Yes, sir.
Can I get you to come to the podium, please?
Yes, sir.
This is a workshop between Grimes County Commissioners Court and the volunteer fire departments, and for the most part being represented by the association. I do have a copy of a contract that was submitted to me on behalf of the volunteer fire departments with an effective date, proposed effective date of October 1, 2019, between Grimes County, Texas, acting by and through its Commissioners Court and Grimes County Firefighters Association, the association, a Texas nonprofit corporation, acting by and through its duly authorized officers and the blank volunteer fire department. The information that I received, the changes that have been requested by or submitted by the association are highlighted in yellow. In the recitals remains the same. Term 1, Section 1, Section 2, the term remains the same. In 3, payment by county, use of funds on or about the first day of the term of this contract and upon presentation of an invoice to Grimes County by the volunteer fire department, the county shall pay the VFD the sum of $40,000 for necessary operational expenses. And the change there is the current rate that the county pays each of the volunteer fire departments is $32,500, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So y'all are looking for a $7,500 per VFD increase?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the next change is still in that same section, C, reimbursement funds shall be used at the discretion of the VFD. How is that how is that a change from the previous contracts?
It was not in there on, just a moment, let me pull the old contract up. C was not included
Okay.
in the old contract. C and D were not included.
Okay, and the language to be included in this contract as presented by the VFDs, you want to explain why that's necessary?
Yes, we have people that can speak to that. When you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. Community, did we have a contract committee that was put together?
Mhm.
So who wants to speak to, you want to talk to C or we going back to 3.01 on the 40?
We can go back to the 301 since you have a contract committee.
Okay. Figures, would you like to speak to 3.01 for the 40,000 for the increase?
Yes, ma'am. What's that, your phone?
Chief Vickers, I know you, but would you identify yourself for the court?
My name is Freeman Vickers. I'm the fire chief of Whitehall Volunteer Fire Department.
Thank you,
In
sir.
Whitehall. We've requested an increase of $7,500 to our annual budget amount based on cost increases since 2013, which was the last year that the 32.5 was part of the contract. So we're going back at least seven years. The county has had an improvement or an increase in their ad valorem taxes running from 7.66, 7.14, 4.39, 3.51, minus 1.6453, then plus 1.9739241, and then a plus of 6.69. The total over the year is, over the time period, is 29%, approximately 29% increase. The cost of living during that same period of time has been approximately 20% increase. It's 19.7% increase, and that's from the U.S. Social Security. The cost to our departments for increases in equipment and supplies have gone up between 10 and 17%. So fire hose is one of the major ones that has gone up the least, and it's only gone up 7.5%. Some of our higher technology instruments, such as our thermal imaging cameras and our gas meters, have actually gone down. And the reason they've gone down is because technology in that field has increased, and it's brought the cost of those particular items down. It's a one-time expense for a department, but they're like everything else, they don't last forever.
Sure.
So we're asking for a conservative increase of $7,500 to our annual stipend based on cost of living increases and the increase of ad valorem taxes to the county over the time period. I've also done a little research. I've gone back and I've looked at the approved budgets from 2008 to 2019. The department's cost has been rather steady at 32.5 since 2013. One major cost has been the Navasota Fire Department contract, which is apart and separate, and we don't address that. The things that we do have control over are our run costs. From 2018 to 2009, the total is $1,005,711.80 in run costs. Over that 10-year period, it's $100,571.18 for 10 years. An average department, if you take that number and you divide it by 8, the 8 departments would average $12,571.39. 7 departments would average $14,367.31. That's an approximately $1,700, $1,800 difference between 7 departments and 8 departments. Within that period of time, it's a little hard to give you an exact number because we had feedback money coming back from FEMA in that time period. We had gone through the Dyer Mill fire, we had gone through the Riley Road fire. We've gone through 2 dry periods, and we had extended periods where we were in burn bans, which increased run costs to the departments. The highest year for run costs was in 2012, and that was $121,613.08. The lowest was $62,624, and that was in 2013, the following year. The amount allotted was, on the average, $98,000 more than the run costs that were submitted for that time period. So we're budgeting almost twice or close to twice what our run costs are. So we look to see that there's adequate money within the fire protection capsule, and we believe that there is adequate money in there. Our run costs have never reached the budgeted amount, and we feel that that budgeted amount could be used as a source to supplement the 32.5.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, who would like to address the change on section 302C and D?
Which committee member wants to talk about C? D, we can talk about.
Okay,
Who would like to do C?
What does it say?
C is reimbursement funds shall be used at discretion of the volunteer fire department.
I'll take that one.
okay. Chief Norwood, I know you, but if you would address yourself and identify for the court.
Chief Norwood, Richard Volunteer Fire Department. What we're asking here for is the funds to be reimbursed to the firefighters, to the fire department to replace trucks. Our trucks were going, and I'm not here to sugarcoat anything, so I'm gonna be pretty front out straight. We're going down y'all's bumpy roads, tearing up our trucks, and I feel that the reimbursement money owed to the trucks needs to go back and replace the trucks. I had a life flight call the other morning. I had to slow down to 5 miles an hour going down y'all's roads to make it to the life flight call.
I would like to point out they are our roads.
They're our roads.
Okay,
And y'all are the commissioners.
okay.
And these fire trucks cannot go down these roads and be tore up and not be replaced. We are tearing them up going down these roads, and we have to replace them in order to remain in business. Without fire trucks, we're nothing.
Now,
And
prior to this, we have not been reimbursing or allowing the monies to go to reimbursement on trucks because we classified that as capital expense. Is that correct?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So that's what I'm wanting to set. I don't care if we have to set up a third or fourth, fifth account. We got to figure out how to pay for trucks. Without trucks, we might as well haul water in y'all's drink cups right there.
Okay.
'Cause that's what we're gonna have.
Okay. Any questions for Chief?
Not right now.
Thank you, sir. Then D, under 302, or 3.02, the county agrees to pay for all fire department 700, 800 radio user subscription and programming fees. And I thought we had clarity on that in
Yeah, we just
Commissioner's
had
Court. You just wanted it.
We had to add it in and make sure that was agreeable of the verbiage. John C., is that agreeable with the verbiage on D?
Sounds okay. I hadn't seen it in writing, but it sounds okay.
Okay. So we made it very simple. The county agrees to pay for all fire departments 800 radio user subscription and programming fees.
Yeah.
Sounds like the deal to me.
Yep.
Okay, and
Then 3.03 is a designated change. Annual funds distributed to the VFDs shall be for operational expenses, training, and education, comma, but not for capital expenditures.
okay, the only thing that's left out of that is use for purposes of remuneration and salaries. So I think that's one, who wants to speak to that one in the committee on 3.03?
I'm sorry, Judge, what did you say?
It says on 3.03, it says annual funds distributed to the VFD shall be for operational expenses, comma, training and education, comma, but not for capital expenditures.
So we're removing the payment, salaries. Is that right?
Speak to that, Dan?
Highlighted it.
Okay, here, this is the only part that, I don't know if we can type. There we go, that was left out.
It probably should be.
Will you speak to-
Yep, Dan Sharon, Shelby Fire Department Chief. The reason we left out purposes of remuneration and salaries is that because we feel that that's something that we should be able to do. We talked a while back about $5 per person for the firefighter for calls or whatever. We could use it for that, we could use it for other things. We're not going to pay salaries, we're not hiring fire department personnel to pay salaries, but it might be a good way to get more personnel in. We talked about, hiring and retention. Well, that's part of retention right there. So if we could do something, for the firefighters in that line, I think it'd be a good idea to leave it out. So,
Okay, so nothing's added to, just that
No.
language has been left out.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions for the chief?
Not right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then we go to section 4, VFD obligations, 4.05, it says, pay maintenance only for 700-800 radios. In parentheses, maintenance includes only external parts of antennas, batteries, knobs, microphones, and radio clips.
That was part of what we discussed to be added, to make sure the verbiage was there, so the county knew what they were responsible for, and the fire departments knew what their typical maintenance was responsible for.
Okay. Anything on that, Commissioners? Yes, ma'am.
I believe it was also stated in that meeting that if a radio broke and they didn't have any more at the FOG, that the fire departments would have to pay to replace that radio if they wanted that radio.
I believe that was what was said. I'd have to go back and watch the video, but if it was damaged beyond repair, then the fire department would have to replace the radio, but that's, but they also, I think the COG said that they would continue to replace as long as they had refurbished radios on hand. And they, I'm sorry?
Correct.
And they would continue to do that as long as those were available. They did not know how long that would be they would be available, because they had a tendency to continue to get some of those in and refurb those.
Correct.
But ultimately, that refurbished supply will go away.
Correct. And we do understand that in our conversation, that if we lose a radio's damaged beyond repair, we come to y'all and tell you, okay, we're taking this one out of service and we're putting this in service. So we stop the subscriptions and start over.
Right, so the subscriptions stay in line with what's being used. Okay. Then there are no other changes, and I think that was the only ones on those points, correct? The changes that have been read and addressed are those that have been proposed by the volunteer fire departments. Any questions or comments?
I do have, but,
Okay.
so y'all are gonna have to catch me up to speed on some of this stuff. Why do all the fire departments get the same stipend of 32.5, or what is it, 40 something? But requesting a $7,500 increase. But why do they all get the same?
We stand together.
What's that?
We stand together.
Stand together. What is that? I mean, but you don't all perform at the same level, do you? I mean, y'all have different expenses, right? Everybody has the same expense?
Pretty much.
We perform at the same level across the county, with the exception of down south. We, we'll drive down the same bumpy roads.
Well, okay, but along piggybacking with what the commissioner's talking about, the run costs
That's where we will vary.
and those kind of things do indeed vary.
And they vary on call volume per department.
And that's why we left it like that.
Yeah.
Still costs the department the same kilowatt hour per kilowatt for Whitehall as it does for Anderson or Iola or Shiro to keep the lights on at the fire station, to keep the well that fills the water tanks for the fire trucks running. Those costs are universal costs. Our department, we don't even have a phone. We can't get the phone company to provide us a phone line at a reasonable rate. And besides, who's there to answer it anyhow?
Okay.
So what we are talking about is a uniform operating budget for all the departments, regardless of how many apparatus they have. We are probably the newest department outside of Todd Mission, and we probably have the least amount of equipment. So their equipment operating costs, which are an oil change in an engine, if you do it yourself at the station, it's about $175.
Okay.
That's a filter and 6 gallons of oil. Some of the newer engines that have larger Cummins in them, the M series Cummins, they take right at 10 gallons of oil. So it's $65 a 5-gallon bucket at Tractor Supply. It doesn't take long to run up a big budget just for one apparatus. So an oil change and everything a year, and in some departments who have higher call volumes, an oil change twice a year. Air filters are not anything that's cheaper.
There's much more than just oil changes. There's maintenance on the vehicles that we're not even talking about. Your pump certification, you gotta do that every year. Your PMs on your vehicles is not just an oil change. A PM is bumper to bumper, and you're changing, fluids and everything. You're doing DOT inspection on it to make sure that it's roadworthy. All those type of things that are costs that every one of us has to pay. Okay.
We have annual air
Insurance.
pack inspections, annual ladder tests, annual hose testing, to make sure that we don't have a hose failure at a critical incident or a critical time.
Our insurance goes up every year.
How do other fire departments function outside of our community, our county?
Depends on the community.
Well, I mean, we've got data that was provided to us. Our auditors did some research for us where, and I think we've shared the information with you folks also, where,
You're comparing apples and oranges.
well, tell me more about that,
Brazos County, for example,
okay?
those are ESDs. Those are all funded by tax districts, by ESDs.
Any call that ESD doesn't make is made by either College Station
Or Brian.
or Bryan,
The city.
both for fire and EMS. So Navasota doesn't run to all the calls in the county. That's what we're talking about, apples and oranges. No call gets unanswered in Bryan or College Station because both those municipalities spread their resources out into the county to cover those calls. It's the same in Walker County. No call goes unanswered in Walker County because the city of Huntsville takes its assets and resources and covers calls that are not answered by the volunteer departments. And I can't speak to why the volunteer departments don't answer their calls. But I'm sure that there are those that go unresponded to by the dispatched volunteer department.
Is Iola represented here?
Yes.
That was you, okay. Well, y'all are an ESD,
Yes, sir. We have an ESD. Yes, sir.
so why do we give y'all the 32.5 like we give the other departments?
There again, it was because all the departments were standing together when they initially came to the Commissioners Court for the funding and assisting with it. The ESD is additional funds that the citizens of the Iola area decided to vote in on themselves
Right.
to help improve the department and provide, better, newer equipment than what the department had at the time that it was established.
Well, the 32,500 is also paid by the citizens.
Yes, that's one fee that was put on them, and they decided to put a second tax fee, or a second tax levy on themselves for that. In addition to what their county fees were. That was voted in 1990.
Okay.
I sat as a member of what was originally the Rural Fire Prevention District Board for 10 years.
So if y'all all have the same cost, and you have, I'll just use you back there, Chief, because we're talking about the engines. If you have an engine breakdown and you expend all your allotment or your supplement, and it's still not enough to cover the expense, do the other fire departments send money your way,
We'll send equipment.
but
We
no,
answer those calls, they don't.
what's that?
We answer the calls that they're unable to answer. That truck broke down, somebody's got to go on the call.
We assist them. Mutual aid.
That's why we have in the dispatch protocols, mutual aid within the departments.
And that's what's tough on us, is, you know, yeah, it sounds like a lot of money, but if you restrict us from capital expenses on a vehicle, and I think there's a clause in here that says we can only spend a certain amount of money. Well, have you ever replaced a transmission in an E1? It's not $5,000. You're talking more like about $15,000, or an engine. Well, if we can't use those funds out of the county funds, where's it gonna come from? You know, yeah, we have fundraisers, but, you know, I don't know about everybody else, but I don't have that kind of money. Not in our, you know, personal account. So that's, I mean, we've been working on a shoestring. Court, you know, he lost a tanker, and he's striving to try to get a tanker. But you can't use it out of the county funds. So if you don't have it in your personal, you know, fundraising fund, what do you do?
Judge,
Mutual aid.
in that part of the contract, it states that if it's a maintenance or repair to an existing apparatus, that it's not considered a capital equipment, so to replace an engine or a transmission is allowable with the contract readings.
If the money's in the account.
Yes, if the
But
money's.
if the money's not in the account, take $12,000 for insurance out of what we're getting, what does that leave you left? To operate all year, not much.
Those funds are also used for training. They'll provide training to the department's personnel.
Yeah, PPE gear. Big amount,
SCBA bottles,
big amount.
their bottles just went up 20% per model from the cheapest manufacturer.
So if the county decided not to fund anything, how would y'all exist?
Well, we would be right back where we were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, operating based on what we could get at our donations. We would be using trash pumps instead of fire-proof pumps. We would not be meeting any NFPA regular rules or standards. The citizens' insurance would go through the roof because we couldn't meet any of the requirements there. I mean, we would exist. I was a member of the fire department before we had county funding and before we had the ESD. And we had two trucks that used an external pump, and we fought all fires with those trucks. Didn't have enough water, we'd be back at Save the Slab.
Basically, we'd be hauling water in a 5-gallon bucket. We'd go back to the bucket brigade days.
If
So-
you're out of water, firefighting stops in the county. It stops, period. End of sentence.
What's the majority of y'all's runs? Are they fire related or are they?
The majority, countywide, are EMS runs in support of EMS. But they're not the most costly runs countywide. The most costly runs are structure fires or residential fires or barn fires. I think we have a sheriff in this county who can attest to the cost of his barn burning down. So that's the big dollar loss. And if you don't have insurance on your home and you have a fire, a minor fire can be a total loss for the structure and its contents.
It's just not firefighting. There's a lot of things that we do that people don't see. residents don't see that we're out there at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning cutting a tree off the highway. Okay, and we did that just a week ago, several of them. That's a service, that's emergency service to the community that a lot of people don't think that we do, but we do it. TxDOT's not coming out, we go out and we do it. Traffic control for accidents, electrification, LZs, I mean, you name it. We're not just fire.
Well,
We're
Chief-
all hazards now.
Chief Norwood says he's going to be up front, and I appreciate that. I think I want to be up front with the chiefs here too. One of the things that I struggle with in part of this decision-making process, and don't throw rocks, but, you know, when I hear that there's a auto accident and we've got 5 or 6 units that run out to that accident, I somewhat have a problem with that. If we're paying mileage and we're paying hours, I have a problem with that if that's really only a 1 or a 2 truck unit, maybe a 3 truck, I don't know. Y'all know that better than I do, but part of managing these dollars, the Commissioner's Court, we have a responsibility to manage all of these taxpayer dollars. The monies that are allocated to you, I think you chiefs have that very same responsibility to manage those dollars, to make sure that, you know, when you send units out to an emergency situation, you're not minimizing it, but you're not maximizing it every time. And what I mean by that is if it can be handled with 1 or 2 response vehicles, that's what ought to be going out there, not 4 or 5, because I can sit here and say, well, they're just running those vehicles out there to get more miles, or more hours, to get more reimbursement.
Can I speak to that?
You certainly may.
Give you some solace. When we're sent to a motor vehicle accident, 90% of what we do, unless it's extrication, is traffic control.
Okay?
Which means we have an apparatus on one end, we have another apparatus on the other end.
Okay?
And we have somebody somewhere in the middle controlling traffic flow at that scene. Hopefully, we don't have to have the engine at the accident scene doing an extrication. That takes up at least a minimum of 4 people, a minimum of 4 people. So I've got 4 people with the engine, I've got a tanker down here on this end, which makes a very nice blocking vehicle.
Sure.
And that tank operator and a flagman. And on this end, I have my heavy brush truck, which is 1,000 gallons, makes a nice blocking anchor. I have that pump operator engineer and a flagman. So I'm down here on a motor vehicle accident to provide safety for the scene and the officers who are working that scene.
Okay.
And I've got 3 trucks. 3 trucks is about the most I can put on the road. But none of them go out with just 1 person, except the tanker, and that's when he's moving water. I don't send, it's like, you don't go scuba diving by yourself, do you?
I'm smart, I don't go scuba diving, period.
Good answer, Judge.
Believe me, if you did, you wouldn't go by yourself.
No, I wouldn't, you're exactly right.
Firefighting and fireground scenes and emergency scenes are no different. You don't go by yourself. You don't have 360-degree vision around your person. There's always got to be somebody for your back.
But Chief, if you can do it with 3, why do 5 show up?
I can't answer that.
Well, I can't either.
I don't send 5.
Okay,
All I've got's 3.
okay,
But if I did have 5, I wouldn't send 5.
okay.
If I'm sent to a brush pile
Mhm.
on fire, I will send 1 truck, and that'll be a heavy brush truck. It has 1,000 gallons of water. I can carry up to 3 people, but it never goes out with less than 2.
I'll guarantee you that there are occasions where we need more than 5. And Officer Preston can attest to this. When you're on a corner or a curve, it's a
Over a
long
hill?
curve or over a hill, you have got to have some way to slow those people down, because they don't care whether you're out there or not.
I got
They're
that.
gonna fly through. So you've gotta slow them down. I mean, there's been accidents where I've had 4 on there, 2 on this corner, 2 on this corner, maybe 1 in the middle, that's 5. But I think what you're alluding to, or maybe not alluding to, but what you're saying is that there has been occasion where they've towed out more than one fire department. And it's not needed. Because when the fire department gets there, that should be on that scene, has it under control, there's no sense of sending another department.
Okay.
So that could be part of it right there.
And you folks are in much better position to make that call than I am sitting here,
We
or
wanna
the
be safe.
commissioners.
We
But,
wanna be safe.
and I appreciate that, you know.
Oftentimes it is a safety judge, and also, I have been known to turn my equipment around and send it back to the station. I've got enough on scene, we don't need that,
Right.
another more personnel.
Yep.
Also, you know,
But if,
much
the-
like
but if the
Chief
tire,
Vickers
but if the
says,
tires
our
hit the
standard
road,
is, we don't roll a brush truck without a tanker. Now, they may get there and find out they don't need the tanker and send the tanker back. But I always have a tanker go out with my brush, with one brush truck even, because that's 300 gallons of water on that brush truck, on my brush trucks. That doesn't take long to go through.
Go through it real fast.
Judge, on these, some of these things you're talking about, and from my past experience, you send your first people out there first, your good people out there first, and you use the scene to train your rookies with, so they can learn on hand scene. That's a big thing I've learned in my past years. If you start turning people down, say, wait, I don't need you, they won't even answer the call for when you do need them. So some of these things, you need to get these rookies out there, you need to get their feet wet, you need to teach them something. Even if they show up last, you still need to teach them something so that they'll be prepared to handle the next scene that comes around. That's one of my things why I want people on the scene.
and that's reasonable, I can understand that.
Because you use it as a teacher, you're always teaching,
Sure. John?
always.
I think you're more or less talking about apparatus versus personnel, if I understand right.
For the most part, because we're not refunding you folks for personnel, but if your tires hit the street, we're paying mileage, and if you go out and you make a U-turn and come back in, you're charging an hour.
The whole point is, I think that we make sure we have misunderstanding here, because I think some are talking about personnel and some are talking about apparatus, and you're talking about apparatus, not personnel.
That's correct.
Okay, just make sure we're clear here, because I'm hearing the difference and sitting back here, that it's not the personnel you're concerned about, it's the apparatus going to the scene.
Correct.
There's a standard that all fire departments should use, and that is, like Chief Vickers says, is you don't send one person in one truck and one in another, like you said, in another, and get 4 or 5 trucks there, because you should be sending a unit with it manned,
Right.
okay?
A crew.
And that way you cut down on your apparatus. So that's where I think some other fire departments that you're talking about don't do.
Have y'all ever thought what would be a right rate if we didn't pay mileage and apparatus hours? You know, you gave a flat fee. Have you ever talked that?
We have not looked at that figure.
It'd be somewhere around Navajo's figure.
One of the things I have trouble wrapping my mind around is the fact that we're now knocking on the door of $1 million budget item. That's a lot of money yearly to budget. At some point, we gotta make a decision, or it could lead to a decision on whether or not we even continue and don't create our own county fire department.
Yes, but you got what, 7, 8 departments too.
You're talking about $1 million for fire protection a year?
Roughly.
I'm looking at last year's, and last year's was $555,000 for 1999, or 2019.
Yeah, but you gotta add in
That's
about
that's half a million.
add in about 100,000 for your radios. That's 6, and then we're going up to
let's see.
390 on your.
7,500 times 8 is $56,000.
What's 7,500?
So
The
it-
amount
it
that
would
you
take
increase.
the rest-
Without requesting it.
About 6, it takes to about 600,000 on $1 million.
And let me remind you, we didn't ask for these Trump 800 radios. We asked for our VHF to be improved.
And we did that.
No, we hadn't. We have not improved them. I was on the scene this weekend, and my VHF radio could not get out.
Then we spent a fair amount of money for nothing.
Well, we tried to tell y'all that. We want our VHF radios improved.
Court, I don't want to get on the back and forth with you, but when we also had our meeting the last time, I specifically asked the question, have the 700, 800 radios made it safer for our citizens? And the response was what?
It was, it
Okay.
is. But our VHF radios are not working.
Judge, with all
Sir.
due respect, we didn't ask for those radios. They were forced on us, and now we're gonna be forced to pay for something we didn't ask for. That's sort of like the bank coming to you and telling you, we're gonna give you a tractor, but you gotta pay for it.
I understand
And you don't-
unfunded
and
mandates.
You don't need another tractor, but you gotta pay for it because it's parked in your yard. These radios are the same thing. I understand the county wanting to upgrade their communications system. I understand that. But at the expense of the volunteer fire department's budgets to support a radio system of this magnitude? When this was first brought up in Judge Lamont's first term, the man he was running against was all for 700, 800 radios. Until he found out that we knew that there was a subscription cost that 20 years ago, it's more than that now because they came in Houston in 92. I was working in Houston in 92 when we went to 700, 800 trunking. The subscription cost per radio was $5. It started out at $5. And it's done nothing but go up. As it expands, it's done nothing but go up.
Okay.
And it's Motorola only. So putting that financial burden on a volunteer department really isn't fair. It's tough enough for us to keep our VHF radios that we own up and running. And now we're responsible for a radio that we didn't ask for to keep it up and running. Because if I'm not mistaken, what I heard from the county auditor was that there was some discussion about if one of those radios, for whatever reason, is inoperable or unrepairable, the department has to buy it. Why? These are first generation radios. They're over 20 years old. Over 20 years old. They're about on their last leg of life. And within the next 5 years, I dare say you'll see this whole raft of portable radios that we were handed out back earlier last year in the trash heap somewhere. So are we going to put a $5,000 per radio burden on the volunteer department for something that we didn't ask for? It's like paying child support. You pay it until they're 18. But this never goes away.
Okay.
Commissioner Cox, I'd like to speak to your comment about reaching and at what point would the county want to start their own department? You have 8 departments here spread throughout the county, not one department. So the county would have to put apparatus in all 8 of these districts that begins to well exceed that cost, even over a long period of time, built up. One engine, one new engine, is almost $1 million.
$750,000, and that's cheap.
Mhm. We acquired a new tanker not long ago, well, 2014. That was a $250,000 piece of equipment. Personnel. You know what personnel costs are. Certified firefighters, paid certified firefighters, don't come cheap.
Unless you're in Houston and then they're.
Yeah, yeah, that, well. So, the cost of doing a county fire department is a great expense. And then there's the legal aspect of all that too, and the legal responsibility that the county would be taking on. So just to speak to your comment on that,
Thank you.
and those trucks, you would be replacing those trucks every 10 to 20 years, 10 to 15
Every
years.
10 years.
10 years, most
For a frontline
most
truck.
frontline trucks are replaced in a 10-year time frame. Bunker gear that we buy for our personnel runs about, well, I just got bids in for some bunker gear at $2,500 for structure fire gear. That's without buying helmets. That was just coats, pants, boots, gloves, and a hood. Didn't need to, I wouldn't buy new helmets. That has to be replaced every 5 years. NFPA is 10 year. We take a 5-year-old, put it back as a backup set of gear, and you put your new gear on the front line. Gear now has to be under NFPA rules, and granted, we're volunteers. We're not required to need NFPA until something happens to a firefighter and the lawyers and the insurance companies start getting involved and want to know why you're wearing non-NFPA approved gear.
Gear that's out of date.
Gear that's out of date.
Here's the cost for,
Well, like I said, I just got that.
the cost,
And then, you know, then there's another $500 for wildland gear for personnel. I'm ordering dual certified, so I don't have to buy extraction gear. They can use the wildland gear as extraction gear on car wrecks.
Chief, I don't think we're
Well,
debating it's an issue.
I'm just explaining, Commissioner Cox spoke to
Okay.
the dollar value we're reaching, and yes, it gets up there, it gets up there fast.
We started this morning at 9 o'clock sitting in budget hearings, and we had a break from about 5:30 till we reconvened this. And we had presentations from different department heads and elected officials of, I got to have this, my costs are going up, I need this, I need more personnel. And they're making the same pitch as you folks are making.
Understand?
We as a court, we got a bucket of money, and it's not an endless, bottomless bucket. It's got a bottom, and we're just trying to get all the information
Trying to
that we
figure that
possibly
out.
can, because at some point, you know, are we going to fund more on the roads, or are we gonna repair on the fire departments, we're gonna repair the roads, so maybe you can keep your truck 2 or 3 years longer, or, you know, do we need more security on our streets because it's not safe to run down the street? So it's a juggling act that we're working through. I hope y'all appreciate that we're doing the very same thing that you folks are doing. You're trying to get the most for your departments. We're trying to get the most for the taxpayers in Grimes County. And we're having to make the decision of where are we going to put those limited funds? Where are they going to best serve the taxpayers? And you didn't come to hear me preach, but I just want to,
You understand?
if we didn't have any limits, we'd have some cool volunteer fire departments, fully equipped. But just like anybody else, we've got a limited amount of funds, and we've got to make those resources touch all avenues.
we do understand,
We do.
and we have not come before this body before. We are 6 years after our last increase, without an increase in rate, without an increase in mileage, without an increase in stipend. At the same time, the county has reaped over 30% increase in ad valorem tax revenue, and the cost of living's gone up 20%. So we're feeling the pinch too, and we're not asking for anything that we feel is out of the ordinary.
Okay.
We're out of line.
That's fair.
We're just trying to keep up with the cost of diesel in the road maintainers and in the dump trucks and in the chip seal units. I mean, it costs us the same too.
Sure. Joan, is there anything else that the association wants to present to us tonight?
No, sir.
Commissioners, any additional questions y'all have to ask?
No, but don't be surprised if I call you.
Please, if any of you would like the data that I presented tonight, I'll be more than happy to forward it to your email inbox.
Auditors, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have any comments or thought? Because you help us monitor the expenses and things of that sort. So I value your input, and if you don't have any, that's also okay.
No, but the one thing I spoke to you about are old fire hoses.
Okay, there is a pitch, if any of the departments have old, dilapidated, non-usable fire hose, the auditor would like some of that fire hose because you can cut a section off about this big, you can stick it over the doors that have the hydraulics on there, and that can be a security device that teachers can use in the event of a lockdown.
I'd like for 'em
It
just
keeps from
to take
opening
it
the
to-
door, ma'am.
I'd like for them just to take it to the school. I don't.
Well,
care
okay.
what it is on it.
She doesn't want to deliver the dirty, nasty hose, but,
All kinds of hoses.
so, but that's, if any of y'all have any old hose and you don't know how to dispose of it, that's one way that you can dispose of it to schools in your areas. And the second request is that on the 125th birthday, June 15th, if any of y'all would like to provide a truck or two, preferably you don't charge us mileage, but we're gonna need to block some of the roads for our birthday celebration around the courthouse, and we'd love to have your presence and participation in that. So if that's something you'd like to think about doing, feel free to call myself or Al Peeler. We're lining that up.
Is there some coordination email on that that you send
Can I
out?
send us an email?
Just send me an email
Let me send one,
Yes,
let me
sir.
send one to you, because we need, I think Al said it'd be great if we had 8 trucks. We could probably get by with 6 trucks, so we don't need 40 trucks. Parking's gonna be limited anyway.
Well, maybe one truck
15
per
by
department.
time.
That'd
Yeah,
be
if you
great.
can send me an email and I can disperse it to everybody, we can kind of.
Consider it done.
back. Okay.
Consider it done.
Judge and commissioners, anybody else in this room, I invite y'all to my station. Come look at my trucks, come open my toolboxes, ask how much this is, how much this is. I strongly urge that.
Okay.
Judge, refresh my
Every
mind.
night.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm sorry.
I left the stuff at my office, but there's an oil company, pipeline company coming through part of Grimes County.
We
got it. And they're gonna be,
I sent that to all of the departments.
Yes, they got
That
some.
grant for that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that goes up to 10,000 per department, and the pipeline company said they're generally pretty lenient. So
And they
even
work-
Todd Mission ought to, even though you're kind of out of the distance zone, I'd still submit it.
Yeah, but it's anywhere your response zone, or you could, if you could back up that response, you fall into their sector for that grant. So if you're anywhere in the realm of you could possibly respond of a major incident, then you fall into their.
I think that would include all of us.
It does.
What's the name of the pipeline?
Cassandra, I'll send it to
I
you.
don't remember.
I don't know the name of the pipeline. I
I'll
can't
send it to
remember.
her.
I got it.
Okay.
Panhandle and all those.
Commissioners, any other comments, questions? Do I dare ask our attorney anything?
I got nothing, Judge.
We're gonna mark that down. With that, we're gonna go to the third item on our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn? I move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Mallett, seconded by Commissioner Cox. The time is 7:26. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, each and every one of you.
Judge, commissioners,